Okay, well, Miss Davis, Shaniqua, we are so excited to have you today and have you talk to us about the Entrepreneur Toolbox in mental health as a founder.
Yes, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
So we're actually going to jump just right into it. I'd love to talk about your undergraduate background as a Spartan, which is so cool, and kind of like the resources you utilized here, or what clubs or things helped you at MSU to get to where you are today.
Yeah, well, I like to start off by saying one, I'm a diehard Spartan fan for life. There's nothing that could ever change that. Extremely grateful for the experience that I had as an undergrad. My experience was quite unique attending Michigan State. Because I wasn't the traditional student who you typically would see on campus. In fact, when I came on campus, I came on campus as a mother. So at a very young age, my experience of trying to navigate how to become a freshman and a new adult, all while in a different environment, all shaped me to become the entrepreneur that I am today, which we'll talk about later. But so at Michigan State, I studied media and information technology with the focus on computer science. So I like to say that I got the chance to get an engineering degree without going through all the math courses, which is extremely exciting. Um, so I did a lot of the focus on like media, so things that you would see at a marketing agency, really branding, really finding out how to market yourself and also market future companies. But then I also got the chance to tap into my technical side with the computer science focus, which is where I was able to later down the line develop my company's app, Norify, on my own and bootstrap that. So really thankful for that very interesting course. And then some of my favorite programs, or one thing I always like to shout out, is the MSU Family Resource Center. I believe it has a different name now, but for me as a student, as a non-traditional student, that program really helped me get through college and raising my daughter through college on my own. I was supplied with a number of scholarships, childcare scholarships, grants, resources to really help me get through that. So that's my number one resource that I like to point out. So that's a quick background about my story.
That's amazing. That's awesome. So next, you are here on behalf of Norify as the founder. Would you like to give us a little brief background about Norify and how it came to be?
Yeah, so Norify is a diversity recruitment startup that connects underrepresented professionals, specifically from the backgrounds of African American and Latinx, to high growth organizations across the country. So we specifically target companies that have realized that diversity is important to them and diversity is an issue for them. So we come in as a strategic partner to help them understand how they can get more pipeline equity in their system, which is where we bring the candidates in and how they can expand their employer branding. So when we talk about employer branding, we're talking about employer branding from a diversity and inclusive standpoint. So really making sure that they are sending a message that, hey, we are an inclusive organization. We welcome people from all backgrounds in the recruitment process and also in the employment process. So we're the go-to partner for that. And I've been running Norify for the last 4 years. Very fortunate to have done so because entrepreneurship is extremely hard, like literally the hardest thing I've ever done in life. But, to be able to continue to fight for something greater than myself has been a big catalyst for me in keeping this mission going. But the mission for Norify was started through my own personal experience. So after I graduated from Michigan State University, I was running into a few issues with landing a job that I knew at a minimum that I was qualified for, if not more qualified for. So a lot of the roles that I was being pushed into were roles that I didn't feel like were a good fit for me. At the time, I'm like, I feel like I should be doing the things that I studied at Michigan State. So I had about 4 different internships under my belt once I graduated from state. Some in the engineering field, or some in the with the engineering college, some with the Senate. I had the opportunity to work for under Senator Morris Hood in a marketing and PR role. So moving into those directions of trying to find things that fit that were a good fit for my past experience, couldn't get it. I was being pushed into jobs that I hated. I literally remember my first job out of Michigan State. I was sitting in the car and I was crying because I'm like, no, this is not where my life is supposed to be. I went to college all this time. I worked for something greater than this. And then from that point forth, I just tried and I tried and I tried. I had the opportunity to move to Chicago, which I had been thinking about ever since I had been at Michigan State. And I developed a relationship with a mentor who was the head of a very large corporation here in Chicago. So that was a very fortunate opportunity for me. And I told him about the experiences that I was running into. I'm like, I can't seem to find a position that will really fit my background. I know that I have the experience. Can you take a look at my resume? Is there anything wrong? He's like, no, there's nothing wrong. How about you change your name? I'm like, what? I'm not gonna change my name. Like, that's crazy. He's like, why don't you give it a shot? Try switching your name and see what happens. So I gave it a shot. I switched my name from Shaniqua to Sean when I was applying for jobs. Same exact resume, experience, everything. The only thing that was different was my name. Literally, my email address still says shaniqualdavis@gmail.com. But the only thing people cared about was the name. So when I used the name Sean Davis, the response and interest rate was like 10 times greater than Shaniqua Davis. So after I left my last job that I had the opportunity to work full time for, I started evaluating my peers and also the overall corporate space when it came to diversity. And I was looking for solutions that helped solve this problem. And at the time, there were very little, if none. So I launched Notify. And that's what I've been doing for the last 4 years.
That's incredible. That's awesome. So you were talking about being an entrepreneur is hard. It's very hard. But there are some things like self-improvement, mindset, and things that you can do to help it be a little bit easier. So I think you have a lot of tips to share with us today. So I'd love to hear them.
Yeah, so I think when it comes to entrepreneurship, just being able to step into the fact that being an entrepreneur is hard is always going to be the first step. I think when we talk about entrepreneurship or when people see entrepreneurs, especially entrepreneurs who have developed a lot of press or getting awards or it just looks great on paper. We automatically assume that being an entrepreneur is a successful, happy journey. In reality, people don't see what actually happens behind closed doors. So I think the first step would be to just walk into entrepreneurship, understanding that it is a very hard battle. Once you've prepared yourself for that battle, make sure that you are doing something that you absolutely love. Because when it's hard and it's terrible and you don't want to get up and work and you don't know why you're continuing to work on these issues that are continuing to fail, once you find out that you're doing something that you absolutely love, nothing can stop you from doing that. It's like, it's not working right now, but I love this. And I'm doing this for a greater cause so I can continue to work on it, as opposed to working on something that you absolutely hate. Like, imagine how miserable it would be to work on something that you absolutely hate, and then you're also failing at it. Nothing around you is going great. It's just a terrible mindset to be in. So you always have to be in a space where you're ready to work on things that are going to be greater than yourself or something that you love for the greater good of people. That's my number one thought behind it. And I also think the last thing is you should be okay with failing. Like, I think that when we look at the success people, even like people who are, it could be peers and you see them doing great things and you're like, what, why am I not getting these things? I keep failing at these things. Those people may have failed in several different ways before they got the opportunity to succeed. So once you accept failure, you will realize that, failing isn't as bad as it seems. Like, it'll actually get you to your goal faster. So I think that is extremely important for mental health, because it prepares you to accept anything by all means necessary. It's just like, okay, if this happens, it happens. If it works, it works. Either way, I'm centered and I'm okay. So that's my thought on that.
So speaking of failure and success, when you were first starting Norify, what were your major successes and failures?
Well, I fail every day. I succeed every day. I know that sounds very cliche, but when I first started Norify, I believe that my first failure was failing to prepare. I was so excited excited to like actually just jump straight into entrepreneurship and start this company that I didn't actually think through every step that was necessary to make this business happen. Like, I'm a very big thinker. So I see the end goal. I'm like, oh my God, this company, amazing. I need to do it. But there were so many little steps in between there that I had not been prepared for. So I spent a lot of time when I first launched my company making up for the mistakes that I made. So like every time, like, because I wasn't prepared for something, I was testing a lot as I grow, which is not an issue, but had I prepared for it in advance, it may have taken me a little less time to actually get around those obstacles. So I would say that's my first failure. I'm still figuring out. Every entrepreneur that you talk to, they are still figuring it out. Literally, the biggest CEOs, they are like still figuring it out. But I would say my biggest successes come in the fact that every time I feel like giving up on my company, like, people are always reaching out for the solution. So companies have not stopped reaching out for the solution. Candidates have not given up on the solution, which makes me feel like there has to be some success in this. And I'm doing something for people that is greater than myself. Even if it's not working for me and I can't figure it out right now, it's the solution that'll work for somebody else. So I need to be the solution to figure it out. So I think that's my biggest success, being able to continuously be a service to other people. And that brings me joy, and it also contributes to my mental health. I'm like, oh, okay, all this hard work is actually paying off. So
Yeah. So how do you keep that like can-do mindset after being like knocked down so many times, but the failures or the successes are great, but I know the failures can kind of weigh down on you a lot. So how do you just keep going?
I keep going by the people that are around me. So like when I continue to look at the overall situation and I realize that this situation or this problem has not been solved, I'm like, well, if I still have people that are, excited about the solution and the problem has not been solved, I have a reason to continue to work on this. And they haven't given up on me, so I don't need to give up on me. And I think for me, that brings me joy. And also, I'm just not a quitter. Like, I like to, like, I'm very competitive. So the only person I see myself competing against is my own self. So when days get really hard, I'm like, okay, you can give yourself a timeout. We're going to take a timeout. But it's time to get back on the court and we need to figure it out and kind of work it out. So I guess it's a combination of just my own personal like goals. I really want to see this succeed in some way. And also kind of like looking at the people around me who are like excited about these solutions. I think that continues to like feed into my motivation and kind of brings me happiness. I enjoy waking up and thinking about the things that I'm working on. So yeah, that's it.
I love that. So in our kind of preliminary meeting, we talked about planning to fail, and you kind of touched on it a little bit, but how do you prepare or perhaps like avoid certain failures?
Yeah, I think the way that you can prepare to fail is thinking about everything that you love in this project that you're creating just automatically not working. Just say, even if you put all of this time and this energy into it and you automatically accept and say, you know what, this may not work. And if you can say this may not work after you put all of this energy into it, you've prepared to fail. Now, if you put everything into it and you're like, you know what, this has to work by all means necessary. I don't care what it takes. I'm going to make it work. You're not prepared to fail, because at any point, if it goes wrong, you're going to be disappointed. You're going to be hurt. You're going to be strained. You're going to give up on everything that you've worked on. But the idea of planning for things to not work allows you to say, you know what, if this does not work, which it very well may not work, I can plan around it and say, you know what, if this doesn't work, I don't have to stop here. I can, work on this idea, or we can pivot, we can figure it out. Or you can just say, you know what, maybe this just isn't for me. And what that does for you is it saves you a lot of energy in terms of being able to say, you know what, being resentful and being angry that you see other people around you succeeding and it's not working for you. I think there's a lot of power in knowing that you've done everything that you can with the resources that you have right now. And I think that's planning to fail and also planning to succeed, because you're prepared for the outcome. So was that helpful? Did that make sense?
Yes, very. Thank you. We also kind of talked about earlier prepping for your day, for your month, for your year, how to keep productivity going, because I know that's kind of a struggle for a lot of young entrepreneurs as well as established ones.
Yeah. So I think for me, I like to stay connected across the board. So the way that I like to plan and prepare is I have everything connected. So wherever I'm spending the most time at, that's where I like to have that information available to me. So when I'm thinking about like my goals, I think everybody does New Year's resolutions, right? So you're just like, next year I'm going to knock out this and I'm going to do that. I do that with my business planning as well, because I'm thinking about a recap of everything I've accomplished over the last year, last week, last day. It's just like, how do I feel about these things and how can I make these things move forward? So when you think forward, whether it's an annual goal, a monthly goal, I think you need to have an end goal. That's all that matters. You said it's like, this is the big picture and I want to work towards getting this thing done. And within that, every step or every decision that you're making, like from a productivity standpoint, you're working towards that individual goal. Now, at the end of the month or the end of the year, if you don't make it to that goal, that's okay too, because you can always say, look at all the stuff I've done in between here. Like I'm productive. Like I may not have made it to this goal, but I've done all of this, so I can continue to work on this goal because ultimately I'm getting a lot more done working towards this goal than I would had I not planned for it. So I think that one, just making sure you have accountability partners or an accountability system. So accountability partners are people that are around you. It could be other founders. It could be, friends. It could be a spouse or partner, just someone that is going to make sure that they are listening to you. And when you tell them that you have a goal, that they can bring it up, not that you don't want them to be like your parent where it's like, hey, did you do this? Did you do that? It's just like every now and then it's just like, hey, how's that thing going that you're working on? What do you need help with anything? Do you need a listening ear? That accountability continues to remind you that, hey, you've put this goal out in the air and you should continue to work on it. Or if you don't have that partner or that peer support, because everybody does not, have a accountability system. And what that looks like is reminders. A simple thing that I like to do is I like to use notepads and I write down everything that I'm supposed to do. And as I do those things, I cross them off. It feels really good to cross off things that you're supposed to be doing. So when I cross them off, I can look back on that page and I see everything that I've worked on, everything that I have coming up. And that's my accountability. Because if I get all the way down to the page and there are things that are, you love it. If I get down to the end of the page and there are things that have still not been done, I'm like, man, what have I been doing? Why haven't I taken care of this? Or setting reminders in your calendar, phone, whatever you need. Just having an accountability system will help you get to those goals. That's what I think.
Nice. So when most entrepreneurs, they come up with their idea individually. So how did you go about finding this support system and then building like a team to help you with Norify? Because I know sometimes it can be hard, like who do you trust? Who can you?
Yeah, that's a struggle for me, honestly. It's always, I can do everything by myself kind of person. It's terrible. I'm like, you know what? I can build this app. I can do the marketing. I can do the sales. I can do brand management, everything. So up to this day, I've mostly run Norify on my own as a solo entrepreneur. But I do have, I have some lovely people right now. I'm a small team of 2. So I do have, I've had the ability to release some of that energy. And I'm like, hey, you know what? I'm going to trust you to do this.
Yeah.
It's extremely hard because I'm like, ooh, what if they don't do it right? But it is also extremely helpful to be able to focus on other things. It's like, you know what, hey, you know what, I'm going to trust this person to make this right decision. I've already made the decision and say, you know what, this person seems like they're knowledgeable in what they do. They're expert. They can handle this job on their own. And if they need me, they will ask me for support. And then I can focus on the things that I want to do. I think that when it comes to actually finding those people, you need to actually be vocal. Like you need to put out the word that you need help. Hey, even if it's just talking to like a family member or just people around you or just speaking out loud, attending events and say, hey, you know what, I'm working on this problem and I would love to find somebody who could help me with this solution. And just by saying those things, you never know who could just be listening and say, you know what, I actually know somebody who might be a good fit for that. Do you want me to put you in contact? I can make an intro. It's like, yes, please make it true. Please make it happen. I found most of my help by like being vocal. Like at events, I'm like, hey, I'm working on this big solution, and I'm looking for someone to be of assistance to me in this way. Or even on LinkedIn, I'm like, hey, I need help with this, or I'm hiring for this. Can you help me? Next thing you know, the word gets out there. So I think that for people to be an entrepreneur, you have to be an extrovert. Like, even if you're introverted, you cannot be an introvert in an entrepreneurial world, because you need help, you need resources, you need support. And unless you're willing to break outside of your comfort zone and ask for that, you're going to struggle. So I guess, I don't know if I answered the question, but just be vocal. That's
Yeah.
my.
And then I guess this goes with being vocal as well, but you mentioned you had a mentor that helped you get to Chicago. How did you meet your mentor? How does one find a mentor?
I think also being vocal, like putting it out there. It could be just talking to the people around you and say, you know what, hey, I'm looking to develop professionally or personally. I believe in professional and personal mentors. So like if I'm trying to get to a personal point and I'm like, hey, I really want to work on these attributes within myself. Do you know someone who can help me get that? That person that I'm asking that may be able to be a resource for me. But also different organizations. So I actually found my mentor through the National Marketing Association. So when I moved to Chicago, I was really big into the marketing scene, and really I attended every event. Like I didn't know when I moved, I don't have any family here in Chicago outside of my daughter. I didn't have any friends here. So I just said that I was going to be everywhere I thought the important people were. So I started finding events and different organizations. And when I attended these organizations, a lot of their members would be a part of different events we would attend. And then they would have mentorship groups, or just ask me like, hey, would you be interested in being a mentor? But when you want to find a mentor, it's very, very important that as a mentee, you have something to offer your mentor as well. Because it requires a lot of energy to continuously give someone information. Hey, can I pick your brain? Hey, what do you think about this? Hey, can I do this? Can I take some of your time? As a mentee, when you explore your mentorship relationships, you say, hey, this person is in a marketing field and they have this experience, or whatever field it is, just like I can also maybe offer some advice here. Maybe I can be a resource and help them with these individual things while they continue to offer me support. That's how you build lifelong mentorship relationships. Just make sure you're giving and taking as well.
Gotcha. Also, so we're talking a lot about like undergraduate kind of, our audience is mostly undergraduate entrepreneurs. We're the Michigan State Entrepreneur Association. So for early stage founders that are still in school, what is the best advice that you could give them to hit the ground running?
I would say make sure that all of your energy, or I'm not going to say all of your energy, but the majority of your energy or what you're studying is going towards what you want to learn in the future. And that could be very confusing because we may not know that. I think I changed my major 3 times when I was at Michigan State. But I always had an end goal of the kind of professional that I wanted to be. So as you're building out these business ideas, it's a perfect time. I wish I would have thought of my company while I was in school, because I could have shaped my courses around the skills that I wanted to learn for my business. So when people are building out their schedules and they're thinking about the different clubs or organizations that they could be a part of, think about your business and how you want it to grow. You're just like, hey, I need to understand finance a little bit more. Can I get in a finance class? Okay, maybe, I need to understand marketing or communications a little bit more. I want to speak. I want to be on panels. I want to be a part of webinars, attend events. I should probably take a communications class. That would be helpful for me. Or I could join an organization where I could take on the role as a VP or a president or secretary, but I'm understanding structural, like organizational structures within this that will help me support my staff down the line. So just really thinking about every move, like these things are vital, because I would say professionals now are paying for the advice that you can get right now that you're in school. So just shape your learning around your business, and I think that you'll be like extremely prepared for whatever comes your way.
Cool. So I know you are very tech oriented and STEM oriented. For someone who isn't, or even for you with other things like finance or whatnot, have you hired out a lot of positions for Norify, or have you really like done everything yourself?
Yeah, I try to learn as much as I can. If I can do it on my own, like again, if you have the capital and resources to hire people and you trust people, do it. Do it. For me, I came from the background where I had to bootstrap everything. So if I waited to get my idea off the ground to find a developer to develop my app or my website, it would have never got done because I didn't have the capital for it. So if there's so many free courses available, there are so many resources available online that you can like actually just learn the basics and the fundamentals. And I don't think you don't need to be an expert to get a website up. At the very least, when you are a business owner or a CEO or whatever you want to label yourself as, all you need is a landing page. You can build a landing page on Wix, WordPress, Squarespace, all of those things, and you don't need to have an engineering degree, a computer science degree. All you need is to be found. You want to be available wherever people are, and that's going to be on social media. You have a social media page, you have your landing page, LinkedIn, wherever people are, that's where you want to be found. So I think people spend too much time thinking about the need to hire people to say, like, you know what, I don't actually know how to do this. Well, learn how. When
Yeah.
you have free time, just sit down and like try to play it like you learn by doing. So if you don't know how to work Squarespace, just play around with it. If you don't know how to build social media templates, play around with it. Download Photoshop, download Canva. Canva,
Okay.
free. Oh my
Yeah.
God. Download
Love.
Canva. Yeah, like everything you need to do if you don't have a marketing department, if you don't have a sales department, if you don't have an engineering department, you have the resources within yourself to build out the fundamentals to get you off the ground. Once you get off the ground, you develop a presence, people know who you are, you have acquired some business interests or leads through your landing page because people are subscribing to your mailing list. You can go from there to say, you know what, now I'm ready to take it to the next level. And then you can present it to investors, or you can take out loans, or you can hire staff. But start on your own. So that's what I did. I built on my own as much as I could.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So speaking of capital and investors, um, did you have to ever like present Norify to investors, or did you do that also kind of independently
Oh
through?
no, I talk to investors like all the time. It's so exhausting. For me, I hate the investment process just because I think raising capital in general for anybody across the board is extremely hard. To raise capital as a Black woman is extremely, extremely hard. So it's a constant plight of trying to communicate why your company and your value proposition and you are the right person to deliver this solution to the world. So I think that when it comes to financing and funding, I recommend people making sure that one, they can be prepared for the no's because you're going to get a lot of no's. So today I've raised a seed round of capital, which I'm extremely grateful for, but it was extremely hard. So when it comes to actually approaching your business, if you have the resources available to raise capital, please do so. Make sure you have all your, the marketing, the website, everything together, solid story, and you're a solid founder with a great story. Be prepared to talk about yourself and sell yourself. But if you are not prepared for that, or maybe investment is not the best option for you, it's okay to bootstrap. It's okay. It's okay to raise capital by your customer base. It's also okay to raise capital if you are able to by crowdfunding. For me, I've been the most successful in just kind of really using my customer base to continue to grow my product. So whatever I receive from my customers, I put it back into my business. And then if the opportunity presents itself to raise capital, I'll do so. So very stressful though.
Yeah, it sounds very intricate. So actually, my last question for you is, do you have any book recommendations or podcasts or anything that young entrepreneurs can tap into now for the future?
So my favorite podcast for entrepreneurs is How I Built This. And I like to I like that podcast specifically because it taps into the backgrounds of these entrepreneurs of great companies that we've heard of. So when you think about those successes, you're like, oh my God, Twitter, Facebook, they're huge, they're amazing. You hear the stories of people and they're like, no, I was in my basement and I was broke and I didn't know how I was going to do this. I'm like, oh my God, I can relate.
Yeah.
So I love things like that. So definitely check out how I built this. When it comes to books, like I have books all over my house. But my favorite book to date as an entrepreneur has been, for me, for women, is Successful Women Think Differently. And I know that is not going to be universal to the guys, but I highly recommend reading the book because the same principles that are applied in this book can directly be applied to men. And it's really about being able to hone in on who you are, your confidence, and what you bring to the table at all times. So when you are approaching meetings and you're having conversations with investors or customers or potential prospects that are interested in your product at all, you're speaking from the perspective of saying, hey, I have this product and I'm the best person to do that for you, and here's why. So that book has been extremely helpful for me. I carry that with me everywhere I go, and it also was very vital in really helping me understanding the no's, the rejections, and the failures, and being okay with every one of those things. So those are two of my favorite books. Also the 48 Laws of Power.
Awesome. Well, that was an amazing talk. That was such good information. I know myself as a young founder, entrepreneur, it's hard to stay productive, stay motivated, but I really loved your advice. Build your schedule around what you want to learn and what you want to do. So I will definitely be taking that note and implementing it into my schedule.
That could be helpful. Thank you so much for this.
Yes, extremely. Well, I think Koya has some closing remarks.
Okay.
Thank you so much again, Shaniqua, for being here. Olivia didn't say, but she was super excited to come in. And honestly, like the conversation that you guys had, I thought was really interesting as well. And, it's really inspiring to see that you're working to build your company. I've heard some statistic about, I think earlier we were talking to Jake about, and he mentioned Black founders receive like 4% of all funding or something. So I think your story is something that is really important to hear about as well. And well, the entire like initiative of the company is really fantastic, I think too. I think this is the last talk of the series, and I thank you so much for being here to talk about that. I think this is a really great way to wrap it up. It's a good way of saying, okay, how do we take everything that we've talked about in these past couple of days and then do it sustainably, and in a way that helps you set a vision for moving forward.
Well, thank you. This has been awesome. I'm so glad that I could have been here. Anything related to MSU, I'm always going to be all over it. So this is really, really exciting, and I'm thankful. So thank you all.
Is there anywhere we can send people to support you or get in touch?
Yeah. So I can be found, or the company can be found at noirefy.com. That's NOIREFY.com. And it's Noirefy across all social media channels, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, wherever there's social media, Noirefy is there. And if you send us a DM on any of those things, you'll more than likely get in contact with me or one of my employees, and they'll be happy to communicate with anybody who reaches out.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, and then I have one final request. Would it be okay if we took a Zoom selfie portrait photo?
Yeah.
Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Love it. Thank you.
Okay. Have a great weekend.
All right, you too. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.